have 24 pairs of chromosomes, which give them 48. But during the bottleneck period, roughly 900,000 years ago, humans had two chromosomes that fused. And it's our chromosome number 2, apparently, is now a fused chromosome. And that ended up in both of the pairs. Let's see, from full pair, from 24 pair, we go to 23 pairs of chromosomes. That gives us 46 chromosomes as opposed to 48. And that critical evolutionary transformation happened about 900,000 years ago during the bottleneck. So I'm mentioning this, you might be able to see where I'm going with this. That fusing of the chromosomes seems to have been extremely critical for us in our evolution, contributing to a much larger brain capacity, better cognition, all of these other things that essentially created human beings in a roughly modern form. Created human beings, created Neanderthals, created the enigmatic Denisovans. And when that bottleneck ended about 800,000 years ago, those groups spread into Europe. They ended up as the Neanderthals. The ones in Asia ended up as the Denisovans. And the ones who remained in Africa eventually morphed into what we would call Homo sapiens, us. So I'm not going to get into any more of that, but the point is that this bottleneck, this massive evolutionary change occurred during this extreme bottleneck. Massive population reduction, causing major challenges and adaptations. So is this what we might look forward to again? That's where I'm coming with this. And I don't know that that's the case. But is it possible that we human beings are about to hit some other kind of massive genetic bottleneck transformation that would be caused by more than simply the bottleneck, but also would be accentuated by our own technology and our own rapid cultural evolution, which is the other factor which is causing us to evolve so fast, is our own very culture. So is that what we have to look forward to? I'm going to guess yes. I'm going to guess that we are about to go through a very major genetic evolutionary change. Where I differ from a lot of other people who've been saying things like this for a while is that I don't know that I would say, oh, it's all going to be wonderful. Like the people who would, wonderful, lovely New Agers who would say we're going to ascend to the next density after 2012 and all of this. I'm not talking like that at all. That's not my perspective. My perspective is more of this transformation is just going to happen because it probably has to happen. There's just no way it won't happen. It's just the track we are on. And then furthermore, I ask myself, is that why they are here? Because they know that we humans are about to go through another major leap. And if it would include a bottleneck or a reduction in human population, would or could that make it easier for them to manage us in terms of things like genetic engineering? Once the population becomes much smaller. When I first heard the theory of the massive bottleneck from 900,000 years ago, it kind of blew my mind. It still does. Because if you were to take that study literally, it would be you've got 1,200 people. That's the total human population for over 100,000 years, which seems to strain any kind of limits of credulity. Like I could not understand how that would be possible. 1,000, just over 1,000 people for 100,000 years. I don't think it was that extreme, but I do think we went down to a very, very low number. That does appear to be not arguable. That seems to be. So we went down to a very limited amount. And then there was a part of me, and I'm sure I'm not going to argue this because I don't probably believe this, but there was a part of me that wondered, the fusing of the chromosomes that created us into us, could that have been done by someone else looking out for us? Could that have been done by some alien manipulator or guardian? And I thought, maybe, probably not. Probably not. I think that there are some very good and reasonable naturalistic explanations as to why what happened did. But I have to admit, it did make me wonder a little bit. But relating to our time now, I argue that there is a presence of another intelligence that is here right now. And whereas I argue this, there are many of you who you're way past argument. You've literally experienced them yourself. You have a very clear memory of them yourself. And so you're on a totally different level of understanding of this than I'm at. I'm simply making the argument. I make the case because to me, the evidence for alien visitation in some form or another is overwhelming. That's where I'm at. So anyway, they're here. They are from somewhere else. I'm thinking another planet. To me, that makes the most sense. And they're here. And then it always leads to the question of why. And if I am right in my suspicion that their major presence has been limited to more recent times, yes, definite potential for long-term presence. But in the numbers that we're seeing today, I don't think that they had those numbers in ancient times. I could be wrong, and it's possible that they were, but I don't think so. I think they have come in greater numbers more recently because somehow they know that now is the time. Now is the time that something really, really big is about to happen in terms of our technology, in terms of our cybernetic interaction with technology and mind, in terms of, you could say, our general consciousness, if you want to go there, and in terms of our genetic bottleneck, and in terms of the transformation of our society into a kind of technocracy, which I am quite confident is what they have. There's that universality. I do believe, and more likely than not, that intelligent societies that exist elsewhere in this universe very probably will follow the same kinds of pressures and have the same kinds of similar patterns, we'll say, that we have experienced here on our world, and that they very possibly have experienced similar pressures. And once you hook into the informational nature of the universe and you understand that by using logic and science and an ability to manipulate reality or manipulate your environment, once you learn you can do that, really the only question I can think of is, what is the limit? Where does it stop? That's a path that they have been on. That is a path that we are now on. And we've been on this path for a little while too. So we have this in common with them. We're basically, as I see it, we're following the same kind of trajectory that they have followed, but they're here and we're here. We're at a different point on the trajectory. It's not that they're smarter than us and more advanced than us. So that could explain their detachment, like a clinical detachment that they show in so many encounters, and the interest in things like nuclear sites or consciousness or reproduction. And it wouldn't be like traditional human colonialism that we're looking at, but it would be more of a functional kind of a relationship. They don't hate us. They don't love us. They might use us or interact with us because we serve a system level role for them. Maybe, who the hell knows, biological samples or energy emitters or informational nodes or components of the simulation, but that we're part of their system somehow. in ways that we haven't yet grasped. A couple of other possibilities. I mean, one, if you think of potentially competing factions that may be here, I've speculated a lot about this when I wrote the Alien Agendas, for example. That Earth is a kind of I'm coming up with something new here, a kind of like a co-evolutionary laboratories. In other words, not that they've guided our physical evolution, but that we might be looking at a long-term struggle among them for influence over our culture and over maybe our mind to see what system we can fit within. I wonder if this could explain some of the dualities that you notice in the UFO contact literature, you know, benevolent seeming entities versus abduction, trauma, craft that can heal you or craft that can disorient you. Maybe that's what might explain competing, like competing groups could explain that, shaping us toward different trajectories. Some might be pushing for a technocratic rationalism. Maybe there's others that are promoting a psychic or spiritual enhancement. Is that impossible? I don't know. I don't think it's impossible. I don't know. Maybe others just don't give a crap and they're just cataloging us like scientists. So I do think ultimately there's a good chance that we are dealing with limited engagement from them, which I do think overall we tend, that's what it looks like to me. Like they're not reaching out to us by and large. They're here, they're checking us out, but it could be protocols that they have in their civilization. There's deep intrusion without open contact. This you see over and over again in the history of UFO sightings and contact literature, basically. So you wonder if that lack of open contact reflects rules or protocols that advanced civilizations must adhere to. Basically, you don't openly interfere until certain thresholds are crossed. I don't know what those would be. Nuclear war, collapse of our biosphere. I don't know. But maybe we're like in a waiting room, right? A kind of monitored civilization. We're not yet ready or allowed to be met, but we're too consequential to ignore. Just a thought here. And that might, you know, this is something for us to explore, that they're here because we've reached a threshold of danger and a threshold of disruption. And not necessarily just to ourselves, but maybe to a wider network of systems that we're not even aware of. So I'm looking at this as interaction and demands of systems, as you can see here, not emotions, not anything sentimental. I don't know that they would be here to save us or to destroy us. I think it's possible to see that they're here because now we matter, not just as individuals and not just as nations, but as a system that is generating unpredictable new forms of information or unpredictable new forms of energy and unpredictable new forms of potential disruption to a greater system that may exist. So that their presence, maybe looking at it as an agenda, it may not be the best way to look at it. It might be more about the necessity within an informational universe that cannot tolerate blind spots. Yeah. Something like that. So it's an interesting way to contemplate this. I don't know that it's right, but I think it could be right. Or I think it could be onto something. That we are all as intelligent, abstract thinking, informational entities, that we follow a specific organizational structure and path that might potentially be universal, because we may all live within the same informational organizational constraints of system development. What do you think about that? So to me, that's, I just have to say, I feel like that's a little more interesting than going back into, the ongoing debate of, are we going to have disclosure this year? Is Congress going to pass the UAPDA? I want to come back to that. That is important. That is actually, it's timely, it's interesting, it's important. I could talk all day long about other matters of geopolitics that have nothing to do with any of this. The Charlie Kirk event, oh my God. Or Israel and what they're doing, or what's going on in Ukraine. Yeah, those are all very, very significant for our world. I'll probably want to come back to them. But what I'm more interested in doing personally right now is trying to understand all of these things within a broader civilizational structure of requirements that the ongoing rationalization of our civilization demands. That's a little more interesting to me. And I was thinking about this all day yesterday, all day. I was just rolling through this again and again while I was painting our new bedroom. So I had to do that was an all-day project, but I kept thinking about this, and I think that there's a lot to follow up here. So I wanted to share it with you. And again, this is why if there's anything that I can do in this website to make it worthwhile for those of you who are here, I mean, I want it to be interesting and original. Whether it's right or wrong, you can tell me what you think, but I want it to be provocative for you and for me, so I can work through these ideas in an environment that works for me. I think this would be an interesting series of follow-up discussions. Don't you? Tell me what you think. I'd like to know what you think about this. There's a lot there to swallow, to kind of digest, and we'll have to come back to it. So, still wrapping up volume 2 of USOs, and I hope to have a lot of progress on that, wrapping up with this week. I have an audiobook reader who's reading sections of it right now, even as I finish the conclusion. I've given him a number of sections to read. So it's all moving ahead. I'm happy with that.